I remember sitting across from my dear friend Iris, who was 79 at the time, and noticing something unsettling in her gaze. This was the same woman who used to light up any room with her laughter, the same person who would insist on gathering friends for Sunday brunch without fail, yet here she was looking hollow and withdrawn, barely meeting my eyes. Her days had begun to revolve around doctor's appointments and the occasional phone call, calls she rarely initiated herself anymore. When I asked her why she wasn't spending time with our friends, she shrugged and said, "I'm too old for all that now. It's easier to just stay home." The worry that clenched my stomach in that moment was profound. Did she realize how dangerously lonely she'd become? Or how this isolation could be affecting her mind and spirit? If you're over 65, there's a growing risk you might be walking a similar path without even knowing it. The idea of slowing down and withdrawing from social life sounds harmless, sometimes even sensible when mobility issues and energy levels change. But here's the stark truth. Ignoring social interaction after 65 can carry serious consequences for your brain health. Doctors are increasingly warning older adults that cutting back on community events, friendships, and meaningful relationships is more than just an emotional pitfall. It's a potential threat to cognitive function. The stakes couldn't be higher. If social connection is neglected, the decline into forgetfulness, confusion, and even more serious cognitive conditions can be shockingly swift. Not to mention, the emotional toll of feeling separated from the world can diminish your sense of purpose, making every day feel like an uphill battle. Today, we're going to delve into 6 crucial insights that can protect and even revitalize your mental sharpness by emphasizing the power of social ties. Each one tackles a different layer of this issue, from the biology of how our brains thrive on connection to the surprisingly simple habits that can keep you engaged and alert well into your golden years. By the end of this exploration, you'll see a clear path forward, a path that leads away from fear, confusion, and isolation, and toward a brighter, more connected future. I urge you to stick around until the last point, because what you'll discover might shock you. It involves a strategy that even many doctors overlook, yet it could be the linchpin in maintaining a resilient, healthy mind. This isn't just my opinion. A growing body of scientific research, along with dozens of geriatric specialists, supports these findings. More and more, the medical community recognizes that social engagement is as critical to aging, well as proper nutrition or regular exercise. So if you find yourself or a loved one retreating from social circles, consider this your wake-up call. Before we dive deeper, if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing or following for more insights like these. Turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future discussions that could make a profound difference in your life. And if you find these insights valuable as we go along, type 1 in the comments. If you feel they don't resonate, type 0 because your feedback helps shape topics that truly matter to you and others in our community. Let's begin with the first key reason why neglecting social interaction after 65 can silently harm your brain and how you can guard against it. Number 1. The surprising link between isolation and memory decline. Many people believe that memory loss is just an inevitable part of aging. They assume that once you pass 65, forgetting names, misplacing keys, or losing track of daily tasks is completely unavoidable. "It's just my age," we often hear people say. But this widespread assumption isn't entirely accurate. While it's true that certain cognitive changes can occur later in life, the rate at which your memory declines can be directly influenced by how socially active you remain. A common misconception is that your brain is on a one-way trip downhill once you've celebrated enough birthdays. Here's the counterintuitive truth. The brain is remarkably adaptive. It continues forming new neural connections as long as we challenge it. Social engagement is one of the most powerful ways to keep those connections alive. Think of your mind like a muscle. When you isolate yourself, it's like failing to flex that muscle. It atrophies faster. Imagine the story of Robert, who is 72. For much of his retirement, he considered himself a bit of a loner. After leaving his job, he thought, "Finally, I can keep to myself and not deal with the stresses of office politics or social obligations." But over time, Robert realized he was forgetting small tasks, like whether he had locked the door or paid a bill. A few years into this quieter lifestyle, He also noticed difficulty retrieving words mid-sentence. It wasn't until he reconnected with an old friend and started going out to weekly coffee meetups that the cloud began to lift. He found himself engaging in lively debates about sports, current events, and even the latest tech gadgets. Within a few months, Robert's memory slip-up subsided, and he felt sharper overall. The daily mental workouts that come from conversation, recalling facts, sharing stories, responding in real time, had acted like a gym for his brain. Here's a memorable phrase to encapsulate this idea. Isolation starves the brain, interaction feeds it. You don't need a massive social circle to make this work. A simple plan might involve scheduling at least one phone call or video chat each day with a friend or family member, or perhaps joining a senior-friendly class where you can engage in meaningful conversation. Think about discussing a new recipe you've tried, a documentary you watched, or a puzzle you solved. These conversations challenge your brain to organize thoughts, formulate words, and recall details. The emotional benefit? A powerful feeling of connection that wards off the sting of loneliness while keeping your mental gears well lubricated. Number 2, how emotional loneliness erodes cognitive health. It's easy to assume that if you're physically safe and have your basic needs met, you'll be fine. But loneliness isn't just about physical isolation. It's about feeling disconnected even if you have people around. Too many seniors believe that having neighbors or acquaintances is enough. But research shows emotional loneliness can be just as damaging, if not more. Feeling misunderstood or invisible erodes your sense of worth, and this emotional stress can translate into increased inflammation and a weakened immune response, which in turn can affect your brain. Take the example of Anita, who is 76. She lives with her son's family, so she's not technically alone, but she confided that she often feels like a ghost. The family is busy, her son works long hours, and her grandchildren are absorbed in their phones and activities. Even at the dinner table, conversation is minimal. Anita found herself withdrawn, anxious, and forgetting mundane details. That haunting sense of loneliness within a crowded household took a toll on her mind. Eventually, she decided to speak openly with her son, explaining how left out she felt. They agreed to implement a no-phone rule at dinner and created a weekly family talk time where everyone shared something from their day. It didn't solve every issue, but Anita felt more seen and valued, and her anxiety and forgetfulness lessened over time. A key slogan for this point: presence without connection doesn't protect your mind. If you're living with family, don't assume their mere presence will shield you from loneliness. Be intentional. Plan family game nights, cooking sessions, or storytelling evenings. If you live alone, find at least one local community group, maybe a seniors choir, a gardening club, or a volunteer group, to ensure you have an outlet for authentic emotional connection. Feeling genuinely supported can lower stress hormones, protecting your cognitive resilience. If you're still with me at this point, comment 2 down below. Your input matters. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so now. Your support helps us continue creating content that informs and uplifts. Number 3, why brain plasticity thrives on interaction. Some folks believe that by 65 or 70, their brains can't adapt or learn new things. This myth robs them of the chance to tap into one of their most remarkable faculties: neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to reshape itself, build new pathways, and compensate for areas of weakness. And do you know one of the best ways to stimulate this plasticity? Social interaction. There's a surprising truth: the social brain is an adaptive brain. When you engage in conversation, especially with people who challenge your viewpoints or introduce you to new concepts, you spur regions in your mind associated with problem-solving, empathy, and recall. This effect is even more pronounced when you're having face-to-face interactions, where body language, tone of voice, and subtle cues force your brain to process multiple layers of information. Consider Jorge, 68, who had been a taxi driver for most of his life. Retired and living alone, he spent his days reading newspapers and occasionally watching television. Then he was invited to join a local community center where seniors were learning basic computer skills. At first, Jorge was skeptical. "I'm too old to keep up with technology," he claimed. But as he joined the weekly classes, he found himself chatting with other participants about everything from email etiquette to how to do online video calls with grandchildren. These classes forced him to interact, to ask questions, to interpret instructions, and each conversation lit up new neurons. Within a year, not only had Jorge mastered the basics of using a computer, but he noticed he was more alert, more open to new challenges, and significantly less forgetful. New connections build new connections is the phrase that best summarizes this point. If you want a practical step, challenge yourself each week to learn something new alongside someone else. Whether it's attempting a new hobby, like painting or learning a foreign language, do it in a social setting or with a partner. The emotional payoff here is substantial, a renewed sense of possibility that replaces the dread of decline. Number 4. How social circles support healthy habits. The next misconception many older adults have is that building healthy habits, like a balanced diet or regular exercise, has nothing to do with social life. But think about how often our choices are influenced by people around us. When we're socially isolated, it's much easier to slip into unhealthy patterns. We might skip meals, snack on processed foods, or spend too much time sitting in front of the TV. On the other hand, being part of a social circle encourages accountability. You're more likely to attend a chair yoga class if you know your friend is expecting you there. You're more likely to cook nutritious meals if you're sharing them with someone and discussing recipes. Marilyn, who is 70, never used to care about healthy eating. After her husband passed away, she mostly relied on microwave dinners and quick snacks. It wasn't until she joined a local walking group that she realized how important nutrition is for fueling the body, especially after hearing stories from fellow walkers who shared healthy recipes and cooking tips. Soon she started experimenting in the kitchen, posting photos of her meals on the group's message board. The support she received was transformative. She not only felt physically better, less bloated, more energetic, but also mentally more alert. The synergy between social engagement and healthy habits created a positive feedback loop that boosted her motivation. A memorable phrase, "Your circle shapes your choices." Look for ways to bond with others over health-related activities. Sign up for a seniors walking club, a group yoga class, or even a potluck where everyone contributes a nutritious dish. The emotional reward is the feeling of belonging to a community that lifts you up, rather than the hollow sense of going it alone. If you're finding these tips valuable, please comment 4 below so I know you're still here and engaged. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to stay updated on future content that can support your well-being. Number 5. The emotional cushion that prevents stress. Overload stress is often treated as a silent killer, and for good reason. Chronic stress contributes to high blood pressure, heart disease, and yes, cognitive decline. When you face life's hurdles in isolation, your stress levels can skyrocket because you lack emotional outlets and coping mechanisms. It's easy to fall into rumination, going over the same problems again and again, when there's no one to listen and offer perspective. Many seniors believe they shouldn't burden others with their worries. My friends have enough problems of their own, or my children are busy. They don't need to hear my concerns. This mindset can lead you to bottle up anxiety, which only intensifies its impact on your body and brain. But here's the surprising insight. Sharing your burdens often eases them. Talking through a problem with a friend or support group can help you see solutions you missed, or at the very least, help you let off some steam. Look at Helen, age 74. After she was diagnosed with mild hypertension, she worried incessantly about it escalating. She kept her fears to herself because she didn't want her family to think she was weak. The more she worried, the more she forgot daily tasks and struggled to focus. By chance, she heard about a senior support circle that met weekly at the local community center. Reluctantly, Helen went. She was shocked at how comforting it felt just to say, "I'm scared I might have a stroke," and then hear others share similar fears. The group not only offered empathy, but also practical advice, like breathing exercises, dietary tweaks, and ways to keep active. Slowly, Helen's anxiety eased, and with it, her mental fog lifted. A short phrase to remember here is, a burden shared is a burden halved. As a practical tip, find or form a small support group, a few friends or fellow seniors who agree to meet regularly. either in person or even over phone calls or video chats. This emotional cushion can dramatically reduce stress, protect your cognitive well-being, and fill your life with a sense of solidarity that wards off despair. Number 6. Rediscovering purpose through connection. One of the deeper fears that emerges after 65 is becoming irrelevant, feeling like your life's purpose has been spent. This emotional weight can be crushing, leading to a sense of resignation that feeds withdrawal from the world. The misconception here is that your sense of purpose dies once you stop working or raising a family. In truth, your capacity for meaningful contribution can grow if you allow it, because now you have the wisdom and experience to guide others, share stories, and mentor the younger generation. There's a striking truth. Having a purpose is directly tied to cognitive vitality. Studies suggest that seniors who engage in volunteer work or mentorship roles exhibit stronger mental function and slower rates of cognitive decline. Think of your purpose as a guiding light that keeps your mind engaged and your spirit motivated. Let's talk about Bill, who at 67 felt he had nothing more to offer. He'd retired from a decades-long career in bookkeeping. His children were grown and scattered around the country. For a while, he spent his days flipping channels and snoozing in his recliner. Over time, he noticed he had trouble recalling basic math facts, an alarming development for someone who once handled complex financial accounts. His daughter suggested he volunteer at a local youth center to tutor teenagers in basic accounting and budgeting skills. Reluctantly, Bill agreed. The first few sessions were tough. He doubted himself and thought these kids wouldn't respect an old-timer. But soon he discovered they were curious and eager to learn. Teaching them triggered Bill's old expertise, forced him to think on his feet, and filled him with a renewed sense of pride. Within months, he felt sharper mentally, and more importantly, he had a reason to look forward to each new day. Try adopting the slogan, "Purpose is brain fertilizer." Even if you don't want to volunteer formally, you can mentor a grandchild, share life lessons with friends, or simply be the person who organizes a small community event. The emotional benefit is immeasurable. You feel vital and appreciated, two ingredients that keep your cognitive engine running smoothly. If you've gained value from these points, let me know by commenting 6 below. And remember, if you haven't subscribed, please do. It helps keep this channel going so we can bring you more insights that matter. Now let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered. We've explored how ignoring social interaction can be a silent threat to your mental faculties and overall well-being. But we've also seen how small, consistent acts, like reconnecting with friends, joining groups, sharing emotional burdens, and rediscovering purpose, can fortify your mind and enrich your life. Think of the relief that comes with knowing you have a safety net of caring people who will encourage you when you're down, challenge you when you're complacent, and celebrate you when you succeed. Picture a life where you feel mentally alert, emotionally grounded, and deeply connected to the world around you. That's the transformation that's waiting if you apply these 6 points. The stakes are high because your cognitive health influences everything: your independence, your relationships, your sense of identity. But the potential rewards are even greater. The best time to act is now. Loneliness and cognitive decline won't patiently wait until you feel more ready or more energetic. Think of the senior characters we discussed: Robert, Anita, Jorge, Marilyn, Helen, and Bill. Each found a renewed sense of vitality simply by taking small but courageous steps toward engagement. Whether it was a walking group, a support circle, a volunteer opportunity, or a class, they discovered the power of social ties to spark cognitive renewal. Which of the 6 insights resonates most with you? Maybe it's creating a routine of daily conversation to keep your memory sharp. Perhaps it's opening up about your worries to reduce mental stress, or possibly volunteering in your community to rediscover a sense of purpose. Take a moment to visualize how your day-to-day life would change if you made these points a priority. Imagine waking up with a sense of anticipation. Who will I connect with today? What mental challenges will invigorate me? How will I grow? Here's a simple first step. Reach out to someone right now, a friend, a neighbor, or a family member, and make a plan. It could be as modest as sharing a cup of tea or as ambitious as organizing a small group for a local event. The key is to commit to action, no matter how small. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which tip gave you the biggest aha moment, and how do you plan to use it in your life? Perhaps you'll commit to calling an old friend tomorrow. Or maybe you'll search for a senior volunteer program in your neighborhood. Sharing your plan isn't just helpful for you. It inspires others who are reading your comment to take action too. If you found this video valuable, please like and subscribe. Sharing this content with friends or posting it on social media could be the nudge someone else needs to break free from isolation and protect their cognitive health. Your engagement and support also enable us to continue producing content that informs, encourages, and transforms. Thank you for being here. Remember, even if you've spent years feeling disconnected, it's never too late to rebuild those bridges to a healthier mind and a more joyful life. You have the power to change the narrative, to transition from a state of withdrawal and worry to one of vibrant connection and mental sharpness. Your brain and your future are worth the effort.